Good morning and happy Thursday. Welcome to the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. My name is Matt, and I am your guide through the ASTROLABE today. This is going to be a shorter episode than usual. I have a 1 hour deadline because I'm going to be recording a conversation with Ben Kelleran from the Contrarian Corner Substack. We had him on the show here a couple months back. He's a valued member of the King Pilled Discord. And we're going to be talking PayPal Mafia, and I'm sure, knowing his interest, I'm sure that the commodities markets will be brought up at some point, and we'll discuss some of the relationships there. So it's going to be a recording. It'll be posted next week, but I'm going to be doing that at 1 p.m. So I've got enough videos to get us through an hour, hopefully. Do me a favor and hit the like button as you wander on in here. It's good to see you guys in the chat. 2-Bit Podcast is here. It's got to be pretty late for you there, isn't it, buddy? It's like, let's see here. If it's noon here, it's got to be like, is it 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. where you are? I appreciate you. I appreciate you staying up late, just waiting for me to go live. I know that's exactly what it was. Euthanasia is here. Josiah making his dad jokes. Thank you, Josiah. Yes, I am always a little behind. 1 a.m. Okay. He says he has insomnia. I know that feel. It's funny. I wasn't going to do this quote, but it's on my bookmarks, and I'll just share it here. It ties in. Father Spirit and Bailey tweeted a quote from St. Thalassios the Libyan. He said, if you're not willing to repent through freely choosing to suffer, unsought sufferings will be providentially imposed upon you. And Landshark says, this is such a hardcore quote, dog. Welcome to the Orthodox Church. We have suffering and pain. It's a great quote. All right, let's get her started. So this video here, I don't know if this is more funny or interesting. The linguist nerd in me finds this pretty interesting, and I've got sort of a latent, I don't know, Western European cosmopolitan instinct. I find accents and languages and their relationship to one another and the different cultures, the way those things intersect is always very interesting to me. This guy said he thought this was really funny. I suppose there's something that's kind of funny about it, but it's almost just more interesting to me, especially the conclusion drawn by the doctor in this particular case. Let's watch this.
Battery charger.
Battery charger.
Sarah Colwell from Plymouth in England is a dead-set Pom who now sounds like she's from Shanghai.
It wasn't until I was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital she actually said, are you aware of the way you're speaking? And I said, oh, I sound like I have a slur. And she said, no, you sound like you can work at a Chinese restaurant.
Cindy Hastings is fourth-generation Australian. She's never been to Europe, but you'd swear she was born there, such as her thick Eastern European accent.
Where do you think she is from?
I would say probably Croatia or...
Okay.
It's interesting that you perceive it that way, because I'm actually Australian.
Oh, okay.
I'm born in Sydney and Australia all my life.
Oh, wow.
Another Englishwoman, Kay Russell, sounds like she's just flown in from Paris.
Kay, do the locals here in your village accept you as a French person or as an English woman?
They have asked on many occasions what my accent is and where I come from. I started sounding totally different when I heard my speech, and the speech process in my head was totally different. You learn to live with it, you learn to adapt, but it's not easy, and it never is. It's the same every day.
Notice something she said there. She said the speech pattern in my head changed, and I had to get used to that. Just pin that thought for a minute.
Cash.
Kasha.
Crash.
Krasha.
Crashed.
Krashada.
Okay, let's try reading.
Dr. Nick Miller from England's Newcastle University says his patients don't actually speak with foreign accents. It just sounds that way.
You wish to know.
They don't actually speak with foreign accents. It just sounds that way. Isn't that the definition of an accent? your speech sounding a particular way? Is there a more technical definition of accent that I've never thought about before? Because this to me sounds like cope.
All about my grandfather.
The listener hears a foreign accent. So because, for instance, you might add to everything. I want a cup of tea, please. And couple that with changes to the rhythm in your speech, it might remember, oh, that sounds Italian to me. Or you can't pronounce the word or the sound w anymore. So instead of water, you say water or vaz, the water vaz in the glass or something like that. And so they say, oh, sounds a bit German to me.
You're saying these people have a speech disorder which happens to sound in the ear of the listener like a foreign accent.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
So he's saying, no, they don't have a foreign accent. They have a speech disorder that makes them speak with a foreign accent. What's the difference? It's just it's the same thing. They're speaking with a foreign accent. They have a speech disorder that makes them speak with the foreign accent. But are we now saying that the speaking with a foreign accent, like to define that as the case, requires that there be some sort of history with that country and linguistically developing that accent versus just waking up with it one day? It seems to me that in either case, they have the foreign accent. Whether it's that they have a speech disorder that makes them speak with the foreign accent, or they spent a long time around people who speak that way and develop that foreign accent. In either case, the sounds that are coming out are a foreign accent. It is interesting, though. I hadn't thought about that before, that like you could have someone who, his example with the Germans, who just like lost the ability to say "wha," and so all their W's were V's, and then if you didn't listen like super closely, like you might just have a speech impediment where you say your W's as V's. You might not actually be German. But listening to these chicks, it's a lot more than that. This is a lot more than just like there's certain sounds they can't make. They have the inflection. They have even the French chick like stumbled over her words in a way that sounded like the way a French chick would stumble over her words. But yeah, it's very interesting to me the way that what this says about the brain, that like somehow there's like a little something in there that it goes, wah, and then all of a sudden you just speak in a completely different way, completely rewired the way she thinks about speaking or the way that speech forms for her. It makes me wonder if there's some sort of a personality or something that they had accumulated that was sort of lingering beneath the surface. Maybe they watched a bunch of TV shows where someone spoke French and it really resonated with them or something. And then when they had some sort of event or, stroke or something like that, it released that pre-existing personality. Okay. Got a little Bukele clip here. He says, gang members will spend their entire lives in prison, but non-violent criminals can receive training and repay their debt to society. We've already started with the first 48,000. Here's just one of the things they do. So this is a great video. This is the way that Bukele is handling the non-violent criminals in his country. I think we can learn a lot.
Hoy te voy a mostrar cómo fabricar un stand para los agromercados, acá en el Centro Industrial Penitenciario de Santa Ana. Paso 1. Es la selección del material con el que se va a crear el stand. Es material de pino con playboard de 3/4 y de media. En la selección del material es bien importante ver que no esté dañado ninguna fibra del playboard. Paso 2. En el área de corte utilizamos instrumental industrial, especialmente para la mejor visualización del stand. Paso 3. En el área de armado están 3 jabas hechas por playboard de media ensambladas a un nivel establecido por un molde. Es decir, que todo quede a nivel y a escuadra para poder mostrar mejor la verdura. Paso 4. Enlijado y creación de formas es para que no quede carrasposo ningún material y se puedan herir. El sellado es para que no se filtre agua o pueda dañarse el playboard o se reviente y agarrar brillo. Paso 5. Lo más importante de todo es el control de calidad. Así se puede revisar si el stand ha quedado bien ensamblado, bien abrillantado y sin ninguna filtración. Los privados de libertad nos sentimos orgullosos de pertenecer a la iniciativa del señor presidente Nayib Bukele de la creación de los agromercados. Nosotros aportamos con nuestro trabajo una fabricación de stands nuevos como exhibidores de frutas, hortalizas, verduras para toda la población en diferentes puntos del país.
This is extremely wholesome. Josiah says, just listening, this sounds like an intro to a 2000s MTV reality show. Yeah, it does. Number one, I love the idea of the thought of a country existing where you could take the country's criminals and dedicate them toward making wooden stands for vegetables, because there are a huge number of places in the United States where there would be no economic justification for this whatsoever. I mean, if you're just coming up with a make work project and you want these guys to develop discipline and learn their way out, like, you could do it as kind of like a little niche side hobby. But as like a formal policy for the country, it says something about the size of El Salvador and the culture there, which I think is aspirational. Being able to build your culture around farmers markets, and having all the fruit being presented out there, placed in wooden crates and not just packaged up in plastic, and they put all this stuff in plastic and then it gets shipped or trucked around where it's just sitting cooking in the sun all day. And you by the time you actually eat the fruits and vegetables, you're eating stuff that's been like broiled in hot plastic. And it'd be so nice for all Americans to have access to the ability to eat it, to get their fruit and vegetables this way. And then from the perspective of the criminals, having they look pretty thrilled. I don't imagine there's someone standing off screen pointing a gun at them, telling them to look happy that they're doing this. Maybe there is, in which case, okay, based. But this is like a legitimate opportunity. If maybe you were embezzling, or you got drunk one night and beat some guy up or something, and you're not a criminal, but you did something criminal and you're going to be there for a little while, then imagine being able to go into a prison and earn your way out, prove your worth, shorten your sentencing through your labor, or even if you don't shorten your sentencing, at least be able to leave with some sort of a certification or a documentation that you've actually done this sort of thing. You've earned these responsibilities, and maybe even make a little bit of money. Money isn't accessible to you until you get out, but if you wake up each day and you go work your ass off, go back, go to bed, get up, go work your ass off again, a little bit of money is going to be deposited into an account for you that's going to be available as soon as you get out. These sorts of changes would have massive downstream impacts on the rest of society. But of course, we're up till recently, we've been inhibited from ever even considering being able to implement these sorts of things, because to make this sort of project work, you're going to have like privatized the sorts of social structures that you're going to have to set up are going to be so close to slavery that the libs are never going to allow them. No, the libs want them to rot in a cell so that they can somehow conceivably say, no, we're not slaves. But there is absolutely a utility for this is sort of the part of the utility that slavery used to fulfill: debt slavery or criminal slavery. You're going to be a slave for a period of time as a consequence of some sort of crime you committed, or your land was occupied and taken over, so you've got to earn your way into the new class. These things are very healthy and good and natural. Obviously, they can be abused, and this is the reason why in the Old Testament there was a year of Jubilee. So people couldn't be forced into this sort of status and then trapped there permanently. I think it's every 7 years there's a year of Jubilee, and then there was like the 7th of 7. There was like an extra big special Jubilee. So if someone somehow managed to get themselves deeply embedded into debt that they would never get out of, at the very least they would know they're not going to be that way for the rest of their life. So imagine a jubilee for it might have been the 7th of 7. There was like a minor jubilee, I think, every 7 years, and then 7 times 7 is 49, so the 50th year was like the big jubilee. Jonathan Hemingway says, slavery never ended, it just became gay. Now we're enslaved to banks and pretend to own things. Yes, right. This is kind of like the desire to eliminate slavery made everyone slaves, in the same way that the desire to eliminate violence will subject everyone to violence. You know, we don't go out and throw down the gauntlet and duel over some sort of like disrespect or someone speaking out of turn or whatever. So people are more willing to be disrespectful and speak out of turn. Thieves don't get their hands chopped off, so they're more likely to want to steal again, or to steal in the first place. The feminine desire to recoil from this isn't. It's a feminine desire. It's more. It's not exclusive to women. It's a feminine desire, generally speaking, that's more present in women, but men are subject to this as well. They're like recoiling away from violence and being like, no, we need to keep that far away. And that's scary. That's yucky, icky. I don't want it associated with me. We need to build up a bunch of things between us and it to keep it from ever manifesting. If you do that with violence, you just ensure that violence is going to get distributed and it's going to build up and it's going to be far worse. Just bringing back dueling would change a lot. All of a sudden, there'd be a very strong interest in either becoming very good at dueling or keeping your mouth shut and never finding yourself in that position. And both of those would be very good skills to have for men. Anyways, okay, let's keep it jamming here. Our great friend Thomas777 is in Chicago for the DNC, and he's reporting from the ground. And he had an interesting little encounter there.
So a policeman, very squared away, impressive dude. I'm not gonna drop his department. I'm standing in front of the statue at the park. And he says, "Are you Thomas?" And I'm like, "I am Thomas." He's like, "I'm a huge fan of you, man. I'm a huge Steelstorm fan. You know, keep doing what you're doing. I'm your man on the inside." And if you don't believe me, man, you think I'm dropping cap, like my guy here can vouch for it. But you see, man, we're everywhere. You can't fuck with us. I mean, you can fuck with us, but we can't be stopped. We're taking your children.
Oh, God, I love this man. We're taking your children. Damn straight we are. We are everywhere. Let's see if I could find my... Yeah, I said we're everywhere. That one hit me.
Police.
This is good. This is good. We're everywhere. There's a lot more of us out there that either haven't found us yet or just live in such a place that they can't openly be one of us. But they're there. They're there and they're being activated. The more that our ideas and our people and our memes, the more they become normalized, the more that they'll be willing to show their faces. I've encountered a ton of them. I don't think I've yet had the run into somebody on the street who knows me. We've had people who've showed up at our church that didn't know that I went there, and most of them were like fans of Buck, and so they knew Buck was there. And then start talking to them, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, King Pilled," and they're like, "Oh, I listen to your show." So shout out to you guys out there. But this is cool. Thomas is obviously very happy about this, as he should be. It's really cool to see the way that that our little circles are extending into real life now, and the people in real life are becoming more and more willing to be open about it. We need more. I think that's what I said down here. I said we need more of our guys on the inside of everything. We must inside. We must inside. Okay. Speaking of our guys, Ken Paxton is on an absolute heater. Just in, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's office has executed search warrants in 3 Texas counties over allegations of voter fraud. Paxton has spent the last 2 years investigating voter fraud and vote harvesting. The revelation comes after Paxton said his office was looking into reports of organizations registering illegal immigrants to vote. I'm launching an investigation into reports that organizations in Texas are illegally registering non-citizens to vote, he posted on X this week. There's the absolute Chad himself.
Several South Texas counties, including Bexar, are part of an ongoing election integrity investigation. The Attorney General's office says the Election Integrity Unit executed search warrants yesterday in Frio, Atascosa, and Bexar counties, according to a release. It's related to allegations of election fraud and vote harvesting during the 2022 elections. No other information on the allegations have been released, and we are waiting for a comment from the counties in question.
So Bexar County is, I didn't hear what the counties were.
Several South Texas counties, according to a release. It's related to allegations of election executed search warrants yesterday in Frio, Atascosa, and Bexar counties, according to a release.
Okay, so Bexar County is San Antonio. Atascosa, I think, is near San Antonio. I want to say it's to the southwest. Still don't know the broader area that well. And Frio, I don't know where Frio County is. But here's his letter. Attorney General Ken Paxton launches investigation into reports that organizations may be illegally registering non-citizens to vote. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has opened an investigation into reports that organizations operating in Texas may be unlawfully registering non-citizens to vote in violation of state and federal law. It's interesting that he's noting both of those, state and federal law. Investigators from the Texas Attorney General Elections Integrity Unit recently conducted undercover operations to identify potential voter registration of non-citizens in Texas. The investigation has already confirmed that various nonprofit organizations have been located outside Texas Department of Public Safety driver license offices, operating booths offering to assist in voter registration for persons doing business in the driver's license offices. But all citizens have already been presented an opportunity to register to vote as part of the process of renewing or being issued an identification card or driver's license. So there is no obvious need to assist citizens to register to vote outside DPS offices, calling into question the motives of the nonprofit groups. This is exactly like election fortification. This is a major part of it. There's a huge network of leftist NGOs that operate this way. Tons and tons of money gets flushed through them. And let me see if I can find this link that someone sent me here just recently. It's on my computer, so I can't see the name, and I have to go by the phone number, and I have no idea what Tommy Salmon's phone number is. But he sent me a link recently that here it is. Let me open this, and I'm going to drop it in there for you guys to watch. I think I'm going to do as soon as I get some time in an afternoon here, I'm going to sit down and do a live reaction to this video. But Arabella Advisors features prominently. There it is. Glenn Beck talking about these. This is from 2022, I think. Talking about the way these NGOs are structured, how they set them up, and how they manage to deeply infiltrate themselves into all these different systems. And this is how they operate. You know, they'll set up a booth outside a driver license office, and they're right out in the open. They're very bold about how they do this because they've had cover. This is where, when I say that I think this election is going to go the way of 2000, we're going to get a 2000 election redux where it's going to be decided in the courts. And it's going to be because this sort of thing has been happening. These kinds of sting operations, investigations, building up evidence. Because the great thing about this is that these organizations, some of them, like, you could trace the money between all of them. I think that's the next tweet that I have. After I finish reading this, I'm going to read another one. So once if you could crack them in one state, then in theory, at least, you can connect their operations to other states, and you can at least give the overwhelming appearance of, you may not be able to have absolute documented legal proof of every last little thing, but you can, as soon as you start scratching on this network, you can blow the whole thing open. So what will turn the tide, if the tide is turned, will be these kinds of investigations happening, other Republican attorney generals stepping into this space because Ken Paxton is willing to do so, and And then I'm sure Ron DeSantis will be very active with this. And creating the narrative, establishing the drumbeat, and then getting people like Elon and Tucker and Joe Rogan and these large people, these people with really large audiences to talk about it, and establish and normalize the recognition that the DNC is completely corrupt and is operating through these back channels to openly subvert the election. And this is why they've been really lax on border security, let's say. The Texas border dispute was a dry run for this sort of thing happening, whether intentionally or not. And the way that all of the Republican governors all rallied behind Greg Abbott was a white pill. Now that they've established that precedent, it's going to be much easier to do it again. But ultimately, you can expect that every single one of them is going to be primarily focused on what is going to suit their own self-interest. And if it's too dangerous, they'll hit this moment, this decision point, where they're going to be consciously or subconsciously evaluating the public sentiment terrain and determining whether or not they can risk actually stepping forward and taking a stand. So the way to what little bit we can do to normalize this and make it more publicly comfortable for people to come out and take a stand on this, feeling like they're going to have support, there's going to be public support, they're more likely to wind up on the winning side. Everything that we can do to maintain the willpower and the spirit will help with that. Duffet says, interesting conspiracy theory. Fortification will happen, but they'll do it in Trump's favor in order to expose and frame him, allowing for non-certification of electors. That'd be an interesting... I don't think that they're clever enough to do something like that. I don't think that they're... I don't think we have the levels of competence required to be that Machiavellian. I do think that you're directionally on the right track here, and I would not at all be surprised to see them being bitten by the fact that they've kept a lot of this kind of vague. Like, it becomes almost a feature to the counter fortifiers, those who might seek to do their own fortification. The fact that this has been thrown into sort of a legal gray area, where it's kind of an open question. I mean, it's not really, but legally speaking, if you want to be really autistic about it, it's kind of an open question whether some of the stuff that they're doing is legal or not. That has to be sorted out. The fact that there isn't necessarily a precedent for it and that it's been intentionally maintained as legally ambiguous can actually become a boon to us. Andrew says, Matt, do they October surprise this story or wait until after the election, which benefits them more? If you can connect all the NGOs financially, then you can round them all up with RICO laws. And there's actually I've seen some mentions of RICO with respect to this from some prominent accounts. So that would be the way to do it. I think, would it be better? I think it would be better to do it ahead of time. Just off the cuff. I think it would be better to October surprise something like this and have the drumbeat established and going. Because trying to do it retrospectively is you run the risk of losing the momentum. This is kind of what happened last time. There was a lot of people who they're now saying, like, we saw the potential for this, but we didn't think that they were going to be that brazen. And then when they were that brazen, it was like, oh, holy shit, now we've got to try to catch up. So I think there has to be some of both, but I think you want to have this drumbeat established ahead of time that this sort of thing is being investigated. And I mean, from the flip side, the regime at this point is going to be entirely reactive to whatever move is made. And most likely, the way that it's going to be framed is that this is itself a voter suppression effort. This is itself an attempted election fortification, which it absolutely is. But then maybe that increases the possibility that the election is, I don't know, postponed or delayed, or, we can't actually move forward with this. You're going to see some sort of a retaliation from the blue states, so we can't move forward with this. And so there's a good chance that the election, like, this increases the possibility of the election just getting kind of hung up and never being fully sorted out. But I do still think that there is enough political will to sustain the existing structures that it will be. That's why I think it's going to wind up in the Supreme Court. Because I think the alternative to it winding up in the Supreme Court is like an open fracturing of the federal system. And I think there's way too much financial and political interest in maintaining the federal system that the Supreme Court becomes the conservative option. That becomes the compromise option. And I know a lot of the black pillars who want to see the acceleration of the collapse, they say, oh, well, this is just going to reassert people's confidence in the system. Yeah, I think so. And I think that's better than the alternative, because I don't think that we're prepared to navigate what it would look like to have the complete breakdown and collapse. If it does go that route, then I don't think that we're doomed. I just would prefer it go the other way. I would rather see a reassertment of and a belief in the system as it is to buy us some time to be able to navigate for the next however many 4 to 10 to 15 years to build up our own ability to actually navigate that when it does come to pass. Because I believe it ultimately will come to pass. So then some commentary here from Brian Cates, who I've kept an eye on for a while. He's a good guy. He's kind of dipped his toe into our little corners of the internet as well. I think I saw him. I think he had a conversation with David Gornosky recently. So he shares the letter from Ken Paxton. Oh, let me finish reading the letter first. There's a quote here. It says, Texans are deeply troubled by the possibility that organizations purporting to assist with voter registration are illegally registering non-citizens to vote in our elections. If eligible citizens can legally register to vote when conducting their business at a DPS office, why would they need a second opportunity to register with a booth outside? My office is investigating every credible report we receive regarding potential criminal activity that could compromise the integrity of our elections. The Biden-Harris administration has intentionally flooded our country with illegal aliens, and without proper safeguards, foreign nationals can illegally influence the election at the local, state, and national level. It is a crime to vote or to register to vote if you are not a United States citizen. Any wrongdoing will be punished to the fullest extent of the law, said Attorney General Paxton. He is illegal aliens. He's local, state, and nationally illegal. He's covering all the bases here. This isn't a wishy-washy statement. It is a crime in Texas to lie about your citizenship when you register to vote or to help someone else to do so. You can be sentenced up to 180 days in a state jail and pay up to a $10,000 fine. It is a crime to vote in Texas if you're not a United States citizen and a Texas resident, or to help someone vote who is not. You can be sentenced up to 20 years in prison and pay up to a $10,000 fine. The undercover operations have been conducted throughout major metropolitan areas of Texas and are ongoing. So there's undercover operations. Makes me think of James O'Keefe, his relationship with Eric Prince that has been well documented. They've been building up a network of people who are good at doing undercover operations, and they've had great success because the people that they're going undercover with are retarded. So I would not be surprised at all if there's an explicit connection here. If not, at least Ken Paxton has his own undercover operations that are working on this. And they're ongoing. So imagine being someone in an NGO in Texas right now that's been working toward this end. And now you know that there are undercover operations infiltrated into your organizations. Even if it's not true, this would be a wonderful thing to say publicly, because this is how you sow chaos among them, especially if they're a bunch of incompetent shitlibs who have just been operating under the presumption that they've got massive backing from billionaires and the DOJ is going to run cover for them. And so they don't need to be super secretive. They may not even realize, many of them may not even realize what they're doing is illegal. They fully think that this is just how this is how we secure our democracy. And now we find out, Ken Paxton has undercover teams operating among us. So who can I trust? You start the scramble. So he says, read the very last line of this letter carefully if you want to know why some people are in a panic in Texas right now. What does it say? Multiple undercover operations are ongoing throughout the large Texas urban counties into organizations that have been illegally registering non-citizens to vote in Texas and federal elections. If I'd been running and funding an NGO in Texas for the past several years that's been signing up multitudes of illegal alien non-citizens to vote in U.S. federal and Texas elections, I'd be exceedingly nervous right now. How confident would I be that undercover agents and investigators of the Texas AG's office were not able to get inside my organization? This is I love his writing style. I love his voice. He says, "You know what the great thing is about an NGO alliance that's been relentlessly funneling illegal immigrants into this country on our dime, using our tax dollars to resettle them all across the fruited plain, and has been also illegally registering them to vote? It's all connected. It's all networked. All you have to do once you get your agents inside undercover is trace out the network and then follow the money. Ain't life grand?" There's a reason that there was such an effort to get Ken Paxton out, to take him out, and it was not the libs that were trying to take him out. It was the Republican, the Con Inc., the GOP establishment was trying to get him out. Chris LaCivita, incidentally, is not a fan of Ken Paxton, so this will be an interesting subplot to watch. If Paxton becomes the figurehead for this election integrity effort, then to what extent will there be cooperation or alternatively pushback with the Trump campaign? This will be where things really rise and fall, I think, is if LaCivita recognizes. I see him as a political opportunist. I see him as someone who follows the power and follows the money. And so he's going to throw his lot in with whichever side he sees as most likely to win and retain his station. This is why I'm not super concerned about him being where he is, because I don't think that he's an ideologue. I don't think that he's I think he's a hired gun. And if the political tides are turning, he is happy to turn with them. But we'll find out. I showed you guys this poll that was ongoing. Elon Musk tweeted, "Who will you vote for, Trump or Kamala?" Got almost 5.9 million votes and 73% Trump. So it moved a little more toward Trump as the voting ended. I think it was at 75.5 yesterday, or 78.5, somewhere in there. So as the libs realized that it existed and they wanted to go skew it as much as they could, this is all the further they were able to get it. Obviously, this is going to vastly over select for Trump voters in general, because number one, it's going to be people who follow Elon and people who are on Twitter, and both of those are going to heavily select for Trump voters. But even still, this is a pretty massive margin. I think did he retweet it? Yeah, he said overwhelming support for Trump. There was also another thing that Kamala Harris backs President Biden's 44.6% capital gains tax proposal, the highest in history. The proposal also includes a 25% tax on unrealized gains for high net worth individuals. If she continues to stick with this is the death knell. This is absolute nuke territory for her campaign. Because even the wealthy shit libs aren't the wealthy shit libs who are not necessarily at the highest tier, but they're kind of mid tier. They know what this means: a 25% tax on unrealized gains for what's high net worth individuals. I think it's like $4 million or something like that. There's a lot of them who could do this math real easily, and they're not fully assured that they're going to get some sort of carve out. There was another thing that so he signal boosted Theo Vaughn with Trump. And there was something he said about Barron, the two towers. Maybe it was a reply. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but while I'm looking at him. Someone said, if I remember right, he said someone had said that Barron was the one who was setting up these interviews with Aiden Ross and Theo Vaughn. And that they need to have Barron involved in they don't need a campaign as long as they've got Barron. And he replied and said Barron is right. So we've even got Elon Musk Barron posting now. Once again, we need to pray for Barron Trump. Yeah, here you go. Barron is right. This guy said Trump's most valuable advisor is his 18-year-old son, Barron. Sources reveal that the young man is behind Trump's new unprecedented efforts to reach Gen Z. He convinced Trump to go on Aiden Ross's stream and Theo Vaughn's podcast. Who needs paid advisors when you could just ask Barron? And Elon said Barron is right. Okay. Thing happened here with Trump yesterday. I got to try to push through and get all this stuff done in time. Got 22 minutes. Cool moment that happened with Trump yesterday. Actually, no, this is the I had 2 clips on him. I think I did. Where'd my other one go? Here. This is the one I was planning on. We'll start with this one. A woman fainted in the stands at Trump's rally yesterday, and so you could see all the bulletproof glass around him, and then he steps out of it.
All right, well, we heard him ask doctor, trying to clarify what the crowd was asking for, and it appears that call was answered, and the former president has wandered over there with Secret Service in tow, John, to check out what's going on.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times in these outdoor events, because people have been standing around for a long time, it's 75 degrees right now in Asheboro, but it's a sunny day. The president just wanted to check to make sure that that person's okay.
All right, looks like he'll continue now.
Thank you very much. You know, they come 2 days, 3 days early, and it's a lot of stress. We lose them. The only ones we don't lose are front row Joes. I don't know what they have going.
This is incredibly risky and stupid to do this, and I love it that he did it. That's what makes it even better. I also noted, I don't know if you guys saw, but note the composition of the Secret Service agents that come in and surround him. A little bit of a change. I wonder if this is even Secret Service. But I also note that when he comes out and he walks back, they all go their own separate ways. So he steps out, and basically nobody follows him, and he walks completely uncovered all the way back up. So I'd say we get a B- for the Secret Service or his protection team there. But this is just big magnanimous energy. Witt says walls would not even touch a pleb. Right. No, like the dude had a shot taken at him, and he's still going to walk out and walk down and go over there and attend to this woman. If this was a setup, it was brilliant. Like if this actually was they okay, we're gonna have someone faint, and then he's gonna walk out there and all that. Like brilliant, very well done. The aesthetic of this, the presidential candidate, the magnanimous man of the people, they took a shot at him at a rally. He's out here at an outdoor rally. They've built up this whole big bulletproof container around him, and he still steps out of it and walks down in among the people to check on a woman who passed out. Just, he is so good at this. So then another significant quote from the rally.
But the voters will hold Kamala and Joe accountable for this November when I take office, and they're going to be held accountable for what they've done to this country. Right? Thank you. I will ask for the resignations of every single senior military official who touched the Afghanistan disaster. I want their resignations immediately. And I want them on the desk in the Oval Office, the Resolute desk. I want them on at 12 o'clock, Inauguration Day. Everybody involved with that disaster. When you have a disaster so stupid as that caused us such problems, you don't know what that's done to the reputation of our country, the Afghanistan disaster. This house cleaning will be a signal to the entire world and America military and everybody else. They want people to be held accountable for failure and incompetence. And it's just not acceptable that something like that could happen.
If you've listened to the different interviews he's done, he talked about it on the All In podcast. I think he talked about it in, I don't remember if he talked about it with Theo Vaughn, but he talked about it in another one. He takes the Afghanistan thing really personally. You could tell just in general, like everything about Joe Biden going in there and fucking up all the stuff that he was working on, you could tell that he takes it really personally. He sees himself as like the CEO who got into position here and was working on all these things, and then he got jobbed out of the position, and now he's trying to get back in there so he could pick up where he left off, and is just profoundly irritated that this incompetent, bumbling old man has taken his job and is fucking up all the progress that he made, and he's going to have to go in and clean up this mess. So I'll ask for the resignations of every single senior official who touched the Afghanistan disaster. I know one in particular, if he's still there, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Milley. He's mentioned him. He's brought him up as like the guy is an absolute buffoon. Okay. Couple JD Vance things here. So I just got a kick out of this. This is our vice president. So Elena Treen, reporter at CNN, former Axios, says Vance in Wisconsin says his little theory about why Democrats chose to host their convention in Chicago is, quote, so that Walz could actually accurately say that he visited a combat zone. Democrats selected Chicago in April of 2023, long before Biden even considered dropping out. So Vance is talking shit like really obviously talking shit, and he's getting fact checked by the Longhouse here, and his response is just LMAO. How great would it be to be the incoming vice president? You go out and you talk a little shit, and the people who absolutely cope and seethe about you all the time are going to fact check your shit talking and just amplify it. 1.9 million views. We are in a new era of politics, folks. We've got the younger generations are coming online now, and they're LMAO posting at regime shit libs. So he went out, and this is a kind of a fun little thread. This chick and her family got to go meet JD Vance and have their picture taken. She's been just inundated with hate, she and her kids, and she did a big thread about her encounter. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can go read it if you'd like. But first, they were over there. They couldn't get in, and someone gave them a tip that they were. This is interesting. These were a couple other kids who were trying to get in. Someone gave him a tip that he was going to be at this diner. So she hustled over to the diner and hung out. She came inside, and only the employees knew that Vance was coming. Nobody else knew. So they just stood there and hung out for a little bit until he showed up. And scrolling on down here. So I could see JD Vance enter. So here he came and he walked by. She's standing there with her kids. Kids are really well behaved. She says one of her favorite parts is when the Secret Service agent who walked closely to the kids said, "Good job" to them right before leaving my camera frame. The kids stood so still in line and were quiet when everyone else was talking. Proud mama moment.
Has it been in this place the whole time?
Yep. Started, like I said, started out in the front corner of a little soda fountain about the size of a garage.
Okay. How you guys doing?
There's about 20 editions.
Hey guys, how
20
are you?
editions later, and
Hey, sorry.
here we are.
Doing good. Good to
Buddy,
see
how are
you.
you? Space. I'm JD. Is that a T-Rex? That's my. Is that your favorite? Yeah. My son really likes something called a Giganotosaurus, which I didn't even realize was a thing. It's like when I was a kid, we just had T-Rexes.
Yep,
How
that's
old are you,
his
buddy?
favorite.
How old are you? You're 4?
Very wholesome. So he hung out and just pressing the flesh, spending time with the plebs, connecting with them, chatting up the owner. Pictures aren't loading right now. And then this is where he made this journalist joke. He said, if the picture will actually load. There we go. He's at this local deli. This is in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He said, "You have any food here you really don't like? We'll take some and feed it to the journalists on the plane." And so then before leaving, he asked if we wanted a picture together. Of course, I said yes. This might be our Christmas card. We'll Photoshop in my husband. Yeah, they got a nice little spot right here. Just plug him in there. Really cool for these kids. They're going to remember that forever. And then he retweeted it. He says, "It was great to meet you and your lovely family. Wishing them a great start to the school year next week." Comparing this to Walls is just hardly even the same species. Shout out to a powerful mutual here, Brandon Walsh. Go follow him on Twitter at LG Brandon Walsh. He said, "All the people who complained when Vance was picked have been proven wrong." So this is an interview. I'm going to speed it up a little bit so we can get through it. So Jake Tapper, Aaron Rupar, shitlib incarnate, says Jake Tapper just interviewed JD Vance and let him say anything he wanted with zero pushback. Here's the full interview. If there was a single follow-up question, I missed it. Huh. Very interesting. Let's watch it.
For joining us. What's your reaction to what you heard from your counterpart and from the Democrats this evening in Chicago?
Well, I think it's an interesting contrast, Jake, between what President Trump and I are offering, which is very simple. We are advancing policies that are going to lower the cost of housing, lower the cost of food, secure the southern border, and raise wages for the middle class. And Kamala Harris really can't run on accomplishing that because her policies have, in fact, caused a lot of the problems and a lot of the suffering that we see in our country. So what you see from the Democrats is instead this argument that if you want to vote for Donald Trump because you want to change the direction of this country, you're somehow a bad person. And I really think that that dark message really doesn't gel at all with the idea that somehow the Democrats are the joyful party. There's a lot of attacks on Donald Trump, a lot of criticisms of what he's done and what he said, not a whole lot of positive vision for how Kamala Harris is going to fix the problems that plague the country.
There's also been some criticisms of you. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg this evening spoke tonight. He took aim at one of your past comments from 2021, that Americans that don't have children have, quote, no physical commitment to the future of this country, unquote. I want you to take a listen and get your reaction.
You know, Senator, when I deployed to Afghanistan, I didn't have kids then. Many of the men and women who went outside the wire with me didn't have kids either. But let me tell you, our commitment to the future of this country was pretty damn physical.
What's your response?
Well, my response, Jake, is that Pete Buttigieg has taken a sarcastic remark that I made 3 years ago and turned it into something to distract from the fact that his leadership has seen higher transportation costs, higher fuel costs, and higher food prices for American citizens all over our country. These guys act so focused on a sarcastic quip that I made that they ignore the fact that under Kamala Harris's leadership, Americans can't afford the basic necessities of a good life in this country. And so I appreciate that Pete Buttigieg pretends to be offended by what I said. I think Pete should be offended by the fact that under his leadership as Secretary of Transportation, the government took in $8 billion to build 7 electric vehicle charging facilities at a time when Americans are paying 45% more for the gas that transports them to work. That's what we should be focused on, and that's what we
That's insane. Hear that one more time.
7 electric vehicle charging. The government took in $8 billion to build 7 electric vehicle charging
$8 billion to build 7 electric vehicle charging stations.
Facilities at a time when Americans are paying 45% more for the gas that transports them to work. That's what we should be focused on, and that's what we should be talking about. And it illustrates, Jake, my entire criticism of the Democratic approach here is they're focused on fake issues instead of the real record. And the real record is that Kamala Harris has made this country poorer. Donald Trump made the middle class richer, and he caused a lot of peace and prosperity to break out in this country and all over the world. It's a very simple contrast, and I wish the Democrats would focus on the issues.
There was another comment about you I wanted to get a reaction to. This evening we heard a bit about January 6, 2021. We saw a video of police officers getting assaulted. Take a listen to what Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin said the other night about you.
And by the way, JD Vance, do you understand why there was a sudden job opening for running mate on the GOP ticket? They tried to kill your predecessor.
Do you have any reservations at all taking the ticket, taking the opportunity to serve as a vice presidential nominee, given what happened to Vice President Pence on January 6th?
No, not at all, Jake. And look, I can't help but laugh at what Jamie Raskin said. These are people who somehow always make themselves the victims. Jamie Raskin should be much more worried about the fact that there are a lot of Americans that can't afford to buy groceries, that can't afford to put their children in a nice home because of the policies that he has implemented and he has voted for. I just don't understand a person in American politics in 2024 who's whining about what happened to them instead of using their leadership and using their influence to make the lives of American citizens better. I have no reservations about taking this job because I know that if we make Donald J. Trump president of the United States, he's going to deliver rising wages, lower prices, and a secure border. That is all worth it for me, whatever the media or Jamie Raskin says about me.
I want to play some of what Governor Walz said during his speech, his acceptance speech earlier tonight, and get your reaction.
It's an agenda that serves nobody except the richest and the most extreme amongst us. And it's an agenda that does nothing for our neighbors in need. Is it weird? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's also wrong, and it's dangerous.
Your reaction to that?
Well, when Donald Trump was president, Jake, you had people buying homes at record rates. You had young Americans who were able to afford to raise a family. You had people who could afford the basic trappings of middle-class life in this country. And so when Tim Walz says that Donald Trump's agenda doesn't work for middle-class Americans, he already was president for 4 years, and his agenda worked very well for middle-class Americans. Again, I just wish, I would love for Tim Walz or Kamala Harris or anybody else to say that during the 3.5 years that Kamala Harris was vice president, here is the thing that she did to make groceries more affordable. Here's the thing.
Interesting thing here that everybody, this is not just Vance, everyone's talking like this. I happen to get both of them with their eyes closed. Isn't Kamala Harris still vice president? Isn't Joe Biden still the president? Everyone's talking about both of these things as if they're in the past. And I'm pretty sure that Biden resigned from the campaign trail. He didn't resign from office. But since it wasn't really like a formal thing that was done, it's just being treated as if he actually resigned from office. And so he's no longer president, but also Kamala's not president now. But she's also no longer VP. So it's like there's no president or vice president right now. Which is very honest. There never really has been. the last 3.5 years, this is how it's been. But it's the way that things have played out, it's moved to where that's actually how things are right now.
That she did to make it possible to raise a family in this country, or here's the thing that she did to secure rather than open up the border. Because they can't talk about Kamala Harris's record, they're creating a phantom of Donald Trump's leadership. The Donald Trump that I know and that the American people know, I think, produced really good results for the American people. It's a record to be proud of and a record I'd like to get back to, frankly, because it was good for the American people.
Both you and President Trump have suggested that there's something wrong or illegitimate about the way that Kamala Harris replaced Joe Biden on the Democratic ticket. Now that the Democratic convention is here, do you accept Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, as the legal and legitimate presidential nominee of the Democratic Party?
Well, first of all, Jake, she's certainly the legitimate nominee of the Democratic Party. We're going to debate her, and we're going to try to beat her in November. But I do think it's a little bizarre how the Democrats went about this. We have to remember that for 3.5 years, Kamala Harris and a lot of Democrats said that Joe Biden was totally fit for the job. That was revealed to be a lie. And then when it became obvious that Joe Biden was political dead weight, they replaced him without casting a single Democrat primary vote. That doesn't make it illegal, but it certainly makes it a little bizarre. And if I was a Joe Biden voter, I'd be pretty frustrated at the way that this unfolded.
He almost said pissed.
Quickly, if you could, CNN's reporting that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is expected to suspend his presidential campaign on Friday. It's been reported that he's considering endorsing Donald Trump, especially if he gets made Secretary of Health and Human Services or such. Have the two men been talking? Do you expect an endorsement? How much might it help?
You know, so I don't talk to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Jake. I certainly listen to what he says, and I do think that he is a guy who recognizes that the Kennedy Democrats of old have been replaced by the Kamala Harris Democrats who support high inflation and open borders. So I'm not surprised that he feels left behind by the Democratic Party. I think a lot of Democrats, a lot of people like my grandparents feel left behind by the Democratic Party. I would certainly welcome his endorsement of Donald Trump. I've seen the same reports you mentioned. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but I certainly hope it does, because I do think it would be helpful, because it drives home this idea that the Democratic Party of John F. Kennedy, it's just not the Democratic Party of 2024. Let's get back to common sense, and unfortunately, the only American leader running on common sense right now at a national level is Donald Trump.
Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, thanks so much. Safe travels, sir.
Good night, Jake. Thanks.
Dana Bash, Abby Phillip, I will say, whatever one thinks about Senator Vance, he is much more on message and has much more discipline than that other guy on that ticket.
Which is
very interesting. I think part of the reason why there were no follow-ups was because they wanted to get all of these hit pieces in. They had all of these asking follow-ups would have prevented them from actually being able to play for their viewers these other clips. But I think Vance knocked every single one of them out of the park. Euthanasia said Vance is anchoring hard and pushing, quote, "Your life sucks over the last 4 years, so let us fix it." And honestly, it's funny you keep getting these recapitulations from one side does something and then the other side winds up at the same position later, like the next cycle. You've now got Trump, who is running as Biden did in 2020, where Biden's basically his general promise was the last 4 years have been crazy. Let's get back to the way things were before this weird little interregnum. And now Trump is doing the same thing. He's running on the last 4 years have been crazy. Let's get back to how things were before, which is especially going to the CNN audience. Like that's a powerful framing. He didn't give them any red meat to spurg out about. So the NPCs who are watching it, if they have a soul in there, and they recognize how much things suck right now, that's gonna hit them. The other thought was that Duff had mentioned earlier up in the comments here. He said that he's musing about Kamala finding herself in the same position Pence did, which is another one of these weird kind of recapitulations with the shoe on the other foot. where we could find ourselves coming down to the Democrats spend all this political capital and this windbag usage discussing how terrible it would be for a vice president to decertify or certify a new slate of electors and decertify the existing ones. And now she may find herself in that same position again, being pressured from her side to do the very thing that they spent months and months slandering Mike Pence for even considering. It's very the coincidences are just too much. All right, coming right up on 1 o'clock here, so I want to get through this last video. Talking more about, we've talked about Zuckerberg and his change, and I played Lulu Chang Maservi in her interview with John Coogan before, and you guys seem to enjoy seeing her on your screen, and I think that they make some really interesting observations here. So let's watch this. I got to speed it up a little bit.
When a meme takes hold and people start calling you something, like with Vance, obviously it's related to the couch, and with Mark Zuckerberg for years, it was like he is a robot. He's this android. He doesn't have emotions. He's too stiff, and you can't address it head on. You just have to give some people evidence of something new that they can grasp onto. And I don't think Vance has done that yet. We haven't seen anything from him yet. It's still really early, but obviously with Mark Zuckerberg, over the past 4 or 5 years, there's been a super major rehabilitation of his image from robot android, pale in front of Congress, kind of answering questions in a very stilted, lawyerly way, to the cool bro that everyone wants to hang out with, including is it Emily Chang at Bloomberg, who wrote a book called Brotopia. It was very critical of bro culture and has now been on a show literally called The Circuit, going around to all the Brotopias and hanging out with the kings of the Brotopias. And all of a sudden, if you go back and look at her book, it seems like it's an instruction manual, not critical of what was of that culture, because those Brotopias produced things that she wants to go and make videos about now.
So can I tell you what I think happened over the past 5 years? Is 3 things. One is an overall return of masculinity, and masculinity being permitted and acceptable. So that's one. 2 is Facebook doing extraordinarily well as a business, just printing dollars. That helps. And then 3 is that Mark Zuckerberg got rid of a lot of his PR. Like, he still has a team. He actually has a pretty sizable team doing his stuff, and then an even bigger team doing Meta stuff. But he had an old team that was more overbearing and more stiff and corporate, who were trying to actually coach him to basically minimize the surface area for attacks. And I've seen this happen where PR people team up with lawyers, and they're like, well, we don't want people to attack us for these 10 things, so we're just not going to talk about any of them. We're going to stick to these 3 talking points, and the way you win is by not venturing outside this tiny box whatsoever. So number 1, it makes you robotic because you're so stressed about even stepping foot outside of this tiny little box that you're allowed to speak about. And then number 2 is you have no personality and no interest because you're not permitted to. And when you do a lot of congressional hearings, that effect gets even worse because more lawyers and more GR people get involved. So do you remember when Claudine Gay from Harvard had to do that hearing? So I know one of the people who prepped Claudine Gay for this. And what I heard was that there were things that she wanted to say where she didn't have too much of a leg to stand on, but there were things that she wanted to say that would have come off actually better than what she did say. And the lawyers came in and just said no, here's the thing you're going to say. And it turned out to be the worst possible version within the pretty bad already universe of what she could say. So I think for Zuck, it's people are saying he got great PR, he has this PR makeover, and he does have good people, and there are great people working at Meta whom I admire, but mostly he got rid of bad PR and started just acting like a person. And that's what this whole, a PR person didn't teach him Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and a PR person didn't go to the gym and spot him and force him to work out and make grow out his hair.
I think
that's a really, really good point right there. That's everyone who's cynical about Zuck's makeover. There is obviously a PR team. This is an intentionally cultivated thing, but the actual doing of the makeover depends on him. He actually has to go do this. He's the one who has to go become really good at jiu-jitsu. Or he has to. I don't know if he's really good or not. I haven't really paid attention to how he actually fights, but he's at least passably proficient. And then Euthanasia says testosterone made Zuck less like a robot. Weird, isn't it? Yeah, the things that he was required to do for his PR makeover is things that are naturally going to breed a change in your personality, a change in your physical demeanor and your confidence and your appearance. All these things are naturally going to change, and those things he had to actually have the discipline and the willpower to do those things. So even if the makeover was prompted by a PR team, it's still a legitimate makeover.
widespread misconception that this is some sort of like in-house job. And if you go back to 2019 Meta HQ, you'll find like some sort of PowerPoint presentation with Zuck's PR makeover, and he's going to need to learn jujitsu and wear a gold chain, and they like market tested this stuff with him and with audiences or something. I don't think that's what happened at all. I think he's always been this person. If you talk to people who know him really well, they'll say, yeah, this is always what he's been like. Even if you go back to old interviews, he was very much like the bro on the couch. There's that interview of him where he's holding a solo cup full of beer while he's talking about the business. Like, that's the same person that goes to UFC and rides a surfboard off the back of his Lake Tahoe, boat or whatever. Like, those are the same people. It was that like interim period that was very much coached and planned out and calculated. And so,
remember in Men in Black. Okay, throwback. Do you remember Men in Black? The farmer who gets taken over by aliens and then he's all like twitchy and asking for sugar. They put like Corpobot DCGR alien inside of his brain and body and forced him to do that. And so he was like the stiff asking for sugar guy for several years. And then somehow that got exorcised out. Again, credit to him because he gets to choose who's around him. And then he was able to just be a person again. And even his PR people, who again are very good, will say the same thing, which is that he went and got these interests and decided to pursue them. And to their credit, they gave him permission to do that and didn't try to kill it. Maybe the ones that tried to kill it got fired. And this is just this beautiful bro-y chain-wearing butterfly coming out of the cocoon in its true form.
Yeah, it's also interesting that he didn't shift from, like the original attack line against Meta and Zuckerberg was like the damage that social media is doing to our society. And so there were these studies that showed that, young women who use Instagram might get body image issues, right? And if you dug into the data, it was a little bit tricky because it was like 1/3 felt worse about their body. And so that was like the headline number. It was like 30% of Instagram users feel worse. But then what about the 70%? Did they feel better? Because that kind of offsets it and maybe it's not good. But if you get bogged down in debating, if you get dragged down into that product and data discussion, all of a sudden there's tons of legal liability. The lawyers and the PR people really do need to be in the conversation before you go and make a statement about that. But beautifully, they don't if you're just talking about UFC, because that has nothing to do with your business and it doesn't create any legal liability. And so it's not that he like he took the cuffs off and told us how he really feels about Instagram's impact on the next generation. He just started talking about other stuff.
You're so right. He still will not talk about or avoids talking about things like user data and moderation and all of that. But it's just there's other stuff. And this, by the way, is how the Collisons have made Stripe way more interesting than it would otherwise be as a business. Like as a business, it's interesting because it's novel and it's really well run. There's something there, but there's like this really significant alpha of how interesting it is, and that is the Collison factor, where they're talking about books and they launched Stripe Press, and John did that project with Charlie Munger, and they have all these other interests. They're Irish, they're charming, and that is not actually strictly related to the business at all.
Yeah, definitely. And the other totally like conspiracy theory was like the Facebook listens to your phone calls thing. Do you remember this? So this happened on Joe Rogan. Rogan asked Antonio Garcia Martinez, who worked at Facebook, he was like, they gotta be listening to your phone when you're not on a call, because the ads are too well targeted. And of course, it's just the confirmation bias. They show you a ton of ads. Some of them are going to line up, and then they do have a lot of great data. So if you bought something and it knows that we're friends, and then we talk about it, and then I see an ad, that can be determined not by listening to our phone call, right? Like we know how the data can work.
I feel like I've been getting more nicotine ads.
And so
we're coming. We're everywhere.
That is a super, super difficult conspiracy theory to debunk if you're Zuck, because it's, of course he would deny that. If he was doing it, of course he would come out and say it's not true. What can he do to show that that's not true? Nothing.
He can't.
Instead he just has to move on. And so he just moved on, talked about something else, and now no one really pays attention to it.
As a quick aside, this is the Sam Altman issue that I have a lot of sympathy for, because when people say Sam is manipulative and he's always working people, there's literally nothing you can do. If you tell someone you're not, or you explain it, they're like, well, you're just manipulating me. You're hypnotizing me right now. And it's like when you tell someone that they're bad at feedback. Like if they disagree, there's just nothing they can do. You just got to move on to another topic.
Sam needs to go like learn parkour or something. Just learn something that's really striking and viral to overpower all the other memes.
He is surprisingly athletic. I would love to see him do parkour.
You got to pick something weird though. Can't just be like, that's too boring. That's not going to go viral. No. It has to be like parkour across the San Francisco skyline. Did you just see Sam parkouring?
Joe Rogan has like bow hunting. He has a bow hunting simulation in his studio.
All right, well, I gotta run here so that I can go do this interview with Ben. Go subscribe to contrariancorner.com. That's his Substack. Contrarian and Corner are both spelled with K's because his name's Ben Kelleran. He's a master in all the things that I don't. That my thick skull won't allow. So he's got a lot of good market analysis, and he's been a valued member of the King Pill Discord. So if you want to join the Discord, go to kingpill.com, go subscribe to Contrarian Corner on Substack. You can go to contrariancorner.com. And he has a YouTube as well, Contrarian Corner, and you can go subscribe there, and he'll be dropping the episode. He said on Tuesday. So appreciate you guys showing up for the stream here today. I will be back tomorrow with another episode of the Astrolabe. Do me a favor and hit the like button on the way out. We got 111 watching and only 47 likes. So hit that like button. I appreciate you. Follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled. Join the King Pilled Discord, kingpilled.com, and I will see you guys